in the 2 Click studio. So Faith, thank you very much for being part of the symposium. It's a pleasure having you. And of course,
Thank you.
you've come in on Ken Cloke's inaugural address. So that was nice. That was nice. I mean, actually, listening to Ken is really nice. And what I will do is,
Thank you. It's a pleasure. This is a great thing that you have put together, Vikram. Bringing people across the world to really just talk about mediation. We practice it from our little cocoons or wherever you are, but listening to the different speakers, it gives you a completely different mindset, and just getting to know what other people are doing is amazing.
no, that's thank you very much. But and the good part is that I'm telling you, finally find out that similar things are happening. Your thoughts match someone else, which of course you thought maybe you're the one thinking about this, and are there other people? And you find out no, there are other people who think the same way. And the idea
Yeah.
being to get like-minded people together. And I think there is so much we need to do together. So, but
True.
but first, I'll tell you, Faith, what's going to happen is you're going to tell us about the symposium. What is this symposium all about?
It's about Indigenous people and mediation, basically. And we're talking about anything and everything about the Indigenous communities across the world.
Good. And then we had the inaugural address by
Yeah,
Ken Cloke. Yep.
it was amazing. Listening to Ken, I think I need to listen to him over and over.
Yeah.
It was he's a pretty experienced man,
Yeah,
and a lot to refer to his opening speech. Yes.
yeah, that's I also do that. I sometimes I'm sitting there and I watch one of his previous episodes of one of my shows. It's always nice. I mean, there's something that you pick up from there. So,
Yeah.
okay, so basically the schedule and of course the recordings are available on YouTube. And what I'm going to do is just 1 second, I will just tell you where those details are lying. But I like to tell people that because a lot of people don't even know where to find the information. So let me just put that out. And then Faith will tell us about herself, and then we'll move from there. But first, let me just put that up only because there are a little too much stuff available on what I did. So basically, you go to mediatorvikram.com. Of course, you can go to social media posts that of course tells you, but there are also those posts. There's so many of them. Then we have, of course, the World Mediation Circle, which maybe we can talk about. Then, of course, supporting the dispute resolution revolution. The schedule of activities, actually, this is what gives you the schedule. So this is symposium. This is the schedule. And the schedule has all the YouTube links and the details of speakers. So this is where basically you get your information. And then there was that conference in May and June, which then about 90 sessions in that. So you'll find that those details, that conference. So you get the schedule here. So you can see those sessions. And then there was that World Peacemakers Day that I celebrated. So you'll find a lot of information here. Then the various series that I have, Evolution of a Mediator, these are the playlists. So you can click here and go to the playlist. So in Conversation with Beautiful Mind, lectures, talking books, all these different shows are there. So you can click that and find that. Then, of course, then you have the Mediation Vision 2026. Basically, those points I put out for in terms of Mediation Vision 2026. So we're covering a lot of those points as we go along. And celebrating Ken Cloke, you find all the shows that he's come on. So that all the YouTube links are here. And then the YouTube channel, lots of course, playlists like I told you there, and details of those Evolution of a Mediator who all have been there in the episodes. That, and then of course all the in Conversations with Beautiful Mind. What else do I have to tell you? Let me tell you the symposium of last year that I've said, 97 speakers. So all those the speakers and the YouTube links are here. So that's about it. I mean, that's about it. So Faith, it's all about you now. It's you.
That's a lot of content.
Oh, 380, more than 380 videos.
A lot of.
Yeah. So you have, even if you give 1 hour a day, even if you give 1 hour a day, it'll take you more than an year.
Well done, Vikram. So
Yeah. Yeah. So Faith, you have to tell us about yourself, and then please move into the topic.
Yes.
I'm on mute. I'm not really on mute. I'm there, but I'll come in only when you want me to come in.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
please.
right. So my name is Faith Mukami, Kenyan, born, and I live in Kenya. I live in Nairobi, but I was born in Murang'a. Kenya is divided into basically, initially we had about 8 provinces. We currently have about 47 counties, and we are kind of grouped into our tribes. So if you hear somebody comes from Murang'a, it's a specific group of people called the Kikuyus. I have worked for over 15 years with communities around Kenya and around East Africa. My recent work was in South Sudan, working with local communities. So I have found myself in a lot of conflict areas and in small indigenous communities that are dealing with a lot of conflict. Then I didn't know I was doing mediation, but now after training, I realized I've been doing mediation for a long, long time. It's just that it was not defined in that sense, because I worked among refugees. We have a lot of refugees in Kenya in the northeastern side. They come from Somalia, Ethiopia, Djibouti, Congo. And being able to work, I was working with the women and children, and it was basically mediation back to back to get them to coexist. Coming from, they had lost everything they had, they were feeling the values were being lost. They had lost their men and their fathers and their husbands. And just being able to coexist within the refugee camp was a lot of work. I also worked with, in South Sudan, I was working with peace builders, basically the community healers, in helping them deal with secondary trauma. Because the war in South Sudan has been generational. There's a generation of people who do not know what it's like not to be at war and be at conflict. A lot of them also have grown in the neighboring communities because they fled because of war. So they lost their culture, they lost a lot of, and they're coming back. So how do they get reintegrated with the people who have remained there? And having to deal with these communities to mediate, to accept those that left, to be able to accept their neighboring communities. And that war has been generational. And the peace builders and the healers in the community are tired. There's a lot of secondary trauma. And I have also worked a lot with women and girls in marginalized communities in the coast region, in the eastern region. And yeah, so a lot of peace building and a lot of now intertwined with mediation. I trained for mediation about a year ago and have been practicing since then. I trained with IMA. It's an online course. And that really now helped me understand a mediator's mindset and what it is that the skills and how to go about it, as opposed to just community work. So how do I weave it in? And that has come in very handy in the kind of work I do. So that is me, Vikram.
Okay, so what first, before we go further, let's have a look at the map of Africa. Let's do that, and let's see what is, so that people who are not, I mean, they can always look at it on Google themselves, but let's just, so you can, I mean, all that you've said, let's put it on the map. I think that's always nice to see a visual of what you're saying.
Yes.
So basically what we're saying is Kenya is here, and you have Somalia.
Yes.
So, okay. So people come from Somalia, you said Ethiopia,
Yes.
South Sudan. There is someone called Victor Baba who's been on my show. When we write his name, we write Kenya, South Sudan, and Somalia. So he has connections there. So
Yeah.
so we have Uganda here, Tanzania here. Yeah.
Yeah. So Kenya has played home to a lot of refugees in Africa. So we have a lot of them who live here from Congo, from South Sudan, from Ethiopia, from Rwanda. We still have some from Rwanda.
Where is
But
Rwanda? Where is Rwanda? This is Uganda.
Kigali, between Kampala,
Okay,
next, there, the neck up.
Okay, this is Central
On
Africa.
your no. You're
It's
going too
around.
far. Come back
Dun, dun,
to
dun, dun.
Kenya.
Yeah, Kenya.
Closer. There. The- where there is Kigali. Kigali is the capital city of
Yeah.
Rwanda.
Okay, that's a small place. Okay,
Yes.
that's a small place. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
But this is
Yeah.
because what Kenya has done well in terms of the economy. It's a more prosperous state in our country there.
Yes. In terms of the economy, we are deemed to do better than most of the other countries in the neighboring, and also in terms of peace, we enjoy relative peace, so the economy grows. So we are the big brothers in the region.
And how did your election go?
Uh, we had the election on Tuesday. We still don't know who is president. We are waiting for the final announcement anytime now. There is a bit of anxiety, but generally peaceful.
Good. So that there was some worry there that it might not go off peacefully or something. There was something. So Faith, you're here in Nairobi. Mombasa,
Yes.
Mombasa is here, and you've worked all over, you said?
Yeah, basically all over. I've worked with Maasais, I've worked with Samburus, I've worked with Kenya, Somalis, I've worked in the coastal region.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So just to get an idea, because of course you'll take us through your work, so at least we have an idea what it kind of looks like. Yes, Faith. So your experience with indigenous peoples and mediation.
Uh, all right. I don't have a full PowerPoint, but I could use some slides. Can I share?
Please. But what is the result? I mean, the present president is leading, or what's happening there?
No. The current president is outgoing. He's done with his term.
Okay.
So we basically have a totally new lot of people coming in. We have two people who are like tying, which is problematic for us because the winner must get at least 50 plus one, above 50% of the vote, which is pretty hard. So if we don't get that, then we go for a rerun between the first and the second, which we do not want to do. You can see my screen, Vikram?
Yeah.
All right. So basically, this is just an overview of what we know, what is probably in the public domain about the population. And I was thinking, if we have indigenous peoples who are 6% of the world population, it is worth talking about these people. A lot of times we think they are few people, but there are many, 476 million, and that is just an estimate. So,
but Faith, can we start? Can you just start the PowerPoint? Can you just start the PowerPoint, because right now it's a little small. It can become a little bigger if you just start the slideshow.
Let's see.
Next to that, or you can just write the slideshow. There's a slideshow next to that. If you want to do
slideshow.
Yeah, this one. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
this is just the general perspective. And what is common about the indigenous people is that they really have an attachment to their values. They have an attachment to their land. They have an attachment to their way of worship. They have an attachment to their culture and language. And this is what makes them indigenous. In Kenya, we are lucky. We still have quite a number of indigenous communities. I know the world knows just of the Maasai, but we have a lot more indigenous groups in every corner of the country. Not much documented, not much talked about, but we have people who are tucked in their little corners and practice their indigenous ways of life. And bringing it down to mediation, it was probably the most common way of conflict resolution when you talk to these communities. There was no other way before colonization. There was no formal legal system. And this worked because everybody, they overwhelmingly trust the process. They overwhelmingly trust the laws and the values and the customs that they have. What we realize now that it's that there is no static community. So even the indigenous communities are changing, however slightly. Some are changing very slowly, some are changing pretty fast. But there's a lot of influence that is coming to these indigenous communities. Unfortunately, as they somehow lose their indigenous ways of conflict resolution, they are still marginalized by the legal system because there is very limited interface between the indigenous mediation or conflict resolution systems and what they, so as they lose their indigenous ways, they are becoming more and more marginalized, at least from where I sit. So we have beautiful, beautiful communities here in Kenya. The picture there is one of the Maasais. They are known to have kept their dress. In as much as they are very close to the capital city, Maasais begin right after the airport, the international airport, manage to keep their way of life, their food, their medicine, their education system. They are very resilient and refuse to be quickly urbanized or quickly intimidated by the white supremacy or the colonial tendencies. So the Maasai somehow represent the majority of the indigenous groups here in Kenya. And they have their council of elders are very, very strong. They are the ones who adjudicate how land is distributed, how the rites of passages are done. They still hold a very high level in the community, and they are well respected by their own communities and even the political system. Because, you know, if you want to penetrate in that area, and they occupy a very large tract of land in Kenya, and they're in different places. They also neighbor Tanzania. Some of them live on the Kenyan side, some live on the Tanzanian side. So they are quite a number, and they have been very resilient in terms of keeping their traditions. In my way of work, Vikram, you will find that I will always incline towards women and children, because the more things change, it just looks like things just remain the same, especially when it comes to the issues of women. So whether we are talking about the indigenous woman or the modern woman, the issues really cut across. And when I look at the role of women in conflict, even in the indigenous communities, it is believed that women a lot of times are not perpetrators of violence. But looking at this picture, you realize that they have been drawn now into the center of conflict. If you look at the first and the second photograph, the photograph below are two South Sudanese women who are carrying guns. So they actually are going to war. And because the war has been protracted for a long time, a lot of men have died. They are left to defend their communities. So they are right in the middle of conflict. So traditionally, women were seen to be left at home as the men went out to fight. But that among indigenous communities has really, really changed. They've taken up the role of being heads of households. They have become fighters. They have become the community leaders, because the villages, as I go to the villages, you realize there are less and less men because of different reasons. Men who have been killed in war, men who left to go to the urban centers. So the communities are left to be handled by women. So the role of conflict, the role of women in conflict has drastically changed in the indigenous communities in Africa. The picture above there is people fleeing from war. So as they run away from war, they don't live with their husbands or with their fathers. The men are left behind to fight. And so when they move to new places, they are forced to be the heads of those households. they register, they collect the food rations, they take the children to school, they are in charge. So their role completely changes. And while they do all that, on the right, they remain, they are expected to remain as mothers, as nurturers, and they are having to bear multiple roles and multiple burdens. And that for me always, I pick an interest wherever I go into a community in terms of what is the role of women in this community. And so when I look at mediation, even in this Indigenous communities, when we sit to discuss things, I keep asking myself, is everyone really at this table? Is everybody's interest represented in this table? Because the tendency is to imagine that the council of elders make decisions for everybody. That when the men agree to whatever solution they do, then that solution is meant to be good for the women and the children. In a lot of cases, that is not necessarily the case. And I find that among the Indigenous communities, there is now a sense of chronic conflict because a solution reached at a mediation causes a new form of conflict. And as long as they continue to mediate without all the parties at the table, then the conflicts are not completely resolved.
But Faith, do you want to give us a little bit of a background on this, on the war? What are the reason for the war? What is happening there?
A lot of countries in Africa have been at war for at different points in time. A lot of these wars are politically instigated. Power as different communities fight. There's a lot of tribal conflict. When you look at even the current elections that we are having, it is which tribe is going to lead the nation. So if that tribe does not get the position, the other tribe then wants to fight. And it begins there, it becomes tribal war, and it escalates from being just intertribal to a national kind of conflict, like in Sudan that it has happened. And a lot of round table negotiations have been held to try and balance these tribes in government, but it somehow never works because communities feel that they are not represented. And then this wars escalate from just being tribal to being resource-based because like in Sudan, you have a lot of them being pastoralists and farmers. So the pastoralists are coming into the farmers, into the farming fields, and they want to graze there. There is also war among the pastoralists on the watering places. So it becomes resource-based. And then there is also external instigated wars. For example, you go to an area and there are some minerals discovered and the government wants to exploit, or multinationals want to exploit, and war begins there, like we have seen a lot in Congo. So the causes of these wars are immense. In places like Somalia, it's just inter-clan wars, clan supremacies and clans wanting to control different economic areas. And so what begins as small conflicts then escalate and they become multifaceted. And even as you mediate these conflicts, at some point you really are not sure what is the interest or what is the boiling pot for the conflict. What are the real issues? Because when you touch this, another one pops up. When you touch this, and for example, when I worked at the refugee camp, when the people arrive at the camp, they still want to fight and have conflict. And now because they cannot fight in the form that they don't have the tools to fight that they had there, unfortunately, something like rape becomes a weapon of war. So this community, this tribe defiles and rapes women from the other tribe, and there's retaliation. And you find that becomes very, very nasty. Every day you have so many cases of rape, you have many cases of child defilement. So weapons of war keep changing. And when you have an external hand at it that is invisible, it becomes even worse, which is what we see in Africa. The people, the underhand, the invisible hands the people who supply the weapons, the people who finance the warlords. And these conflicts, though they seem to end, they continue to simmer for a very, very long time. And sometimes even the indigenous ways of mediating them are almost become weakened because the processes are infiltrated.
Because when you said that,
the wars are at different levels, caused by different things.
no, I'm just saying that when you were saying that everyone is not on the table, I think these invisible hands that you're talking about, I think when they come on the table, things might be, I mean, solutions might be a little more long term, but who's going to bring them? Are they ever going to come on the table? So that's also something which I think is a problem everywhere, because there's so many vested interests. That's
Yes,
faith.
faith, exactly.
I think faith
Faith
has a bit
has a
of
bit
a
of a
signal issue.
issue.
She should be back, but this is what's happening this week. So we've already had Luis Ore from Peru, Helen from Australia, Robin from the US, Angela from Israel, and now Faith. So please watch those sessions. Luis Ore has worked with communities that are affected by mining projects, so which we'll also discuss with Faith. That is also one of the issues, she said, of conflicts, resource-based. In the World Mediation Circle, a network of mediation circles around the world, from in every school, every community. That's the whole focus now, to set these up. So on the website, you will find details of that. Let's go there until Faith comes. Yes, Faith. Any better?
Sorry about that. My internet just dropped off.
I'll tell you what we do, Faith. Let's, while you're sharing the screen, we can shut your video. So then I think the signal, you'll have a better signal situation. You want to do that?
Okay.
Yeah, I think, and then we can obviously put the video back later. Because that, I think, it's a situation in Africa, I think, which should maybe one of these days change, with a whole network of satellites, which will be able to bring you a better signal.
All right. You can see my screen?
Yep. on the aspect of the resource based conflicts, please
Yeah.
have a look at the session with Luis Ore, the second speaker today in the symposium. He's
Yeah.
done a lot of work on this in Peru and Ecuador.
Mm-hmm.
Same issue everywhere. I mean, indigenous communities affected because of projects, the mining projects that he was working on. He's taken us through the entire process from how
Mm-hmm.
that whole worked out, and violence definitely was a part of it when it started off. So how the everything came together, I think it's a very very good, I think, lesson
All
or
right.
methodology which people can follow.
Yeah.
So yeah, please.
I think when you think about resource based, that is one of the case studies that I had picked to talk about because I have experienced it a number of times. I have two particular ones that maybe I could share briefly. One of them was on a honey project, beekeeping project. So we went into this community, and it's an indigenous community. They have a lot of honey, and we were trying to see how do we help them produce their honey, make it cleaner, uh, and sell it and have more income. Unfortunately, that was also going to interfere a lot with their indigenous way of life. But we began sessions, discussions, mediations, planning sessions. And I could see from where I was sitting that we didn't have everybody represented in those sittings. And one of the missing people was women. And for me, everywhere I go, there is a gender factor that will affect a conflict if that is not dealt with. And so we went, and one of the things we were doing, we were helping them change the type of hives. They were using their traditional hives. So we want to train you to make modern hives. We want to train you on how to take care of your hives. So basically, getting this indigenous community to accept a bit of the modern world so that they could improve their life, their income. And it was quick. Unfortunately, Vikram, when mediation is done without a certain group on the table, people will miss out completely, and eventually that conflict will arise. But as you know, when you're having investors, when you're having outsiders, they prioritize results. They prioritize speed because there are timelines, there are funding guidelines, there are, so the process is hurried. So the mediators want to be the keepers of the process and hurry it and move it as fast as they can. So that happened. It was agreed how honey would be collected, how it would be processed, and how it would be packed, and the process was running. But unfortunately, because the biggest beneficiaries of this honey traditionally in these indigenous communities were the women and the children. They use this honey for a lot of other things, medicinal, for their food, for preservation of food, and for many other things. But what the system has agreed and what has been mediated and agreed is that all the honey will be collected and taken to a collection place for refining. So that removes this source of food. It removes this honey and the other things it was doing for the women and children. And a new conflict arose because in Africa and in those indigenous communities, the owners of the resources, including land and animals and anything on the land, is the men. So the people who go for these discussions are the men, and the people who go for the payment are the men. But the people who do the work are the women. So the process began, the honey was collected, and the first payment was done, and the second payment, and the women now went into revolt. And I was in charge of the project. So what did I do? On the side, because the women would never be allowed in the mainstream mediation sitting. So I sat with the women on the side, and we began having these conversations with them. Where did we go wrong? What do you feel about this whole project? And they were very, very unhappy. And one of the things they were very unhappy about is that the money that is being made from this honey is not coming back to the family. So the men are getting paid, they are getting excited about this money, and the money is not coming back to the family. So men will go out and want to marry a second wife. They want to go out and buy another piece of land and all those other things, and they neglect the family. So then we began a whole new conversation about the natural resources. And this I see repeated in a lot of indigenous communities. People move in, they have identified the resource. Well, it's okay, you want to help the community improve their lifestyle, you want to help them make better use of that resource. But the process through which these agreements are arrived at are very partisan. They're not partisan, but they are non-inclusive. They don't include, these indigenous communities will not include women, they will not include young people, and of course, children. And a lot of these interests are missed out because everybody has something to say. Another case that I saw was a council of elders. They they resolve conflict for that community in everything. And for me, I thought the processes were excellent. But when I looked and observed how they mediated marital problems, for example, in a polygamous home where there was conflict, if a man was in conflict with one of his wives, that wife was punished, and her family was made to pay this man a cow, a heifer, or whatever it is. And the assumption is that this woman is troublesome, because why is this man coexisting with the other women, with the other wives, and this one has a problem? So it was always deemed that the women are the issue. If a married woman slept with another man, she was heavily punished because she has brought disgrace to the husband. But the man she slept with, even if he was married, is not punished. And if a man sleeps with an unmarried woman, that was no dispute at all. In fact, it is deemed to be a blessing to the community because more children will be. And I observed and I thought, this kind of dispute resolution was really working not for the women. And unfortunately, as you know, in these indigenous communities, there is no appeal. What is agreed by this council of elders is binding. And I realized that the women really did not have a recourse. They did not have a place to go and what this mediation process was doing is exactly what mediation should not be doing, suppressing people's feelings, suppressing emotion. And when these women taken on the side, they were explosive. But yet, while they're in these communities, they have to appear and they have to agree with what we say. So these processes are good, but in my opinion, there is a need for a framework to look into this non-inclusion and to look into this gender parity, to give everybody fairness. Because when we talk about effective mediation, it should be fair, it should be objective, it should be proportional. So looking at all those things, in some of the communities I interact with around here, that does not work for the women.
But Faith, in
Yes.
relation in my posts and all, I had put down for me the definition of mediation that I am using. So basically, is it really mediation? Because in my definition, in the sense the definition from the Singapore Convention that I picked up, basically the idea being that the person who's assisting in resolution of the dispute should not have the authority to impose a solution, while this council of elders has a authority to impose a solution on them. So are we really considering it as mediation? Is I think that should be what we should also be discussing.
What happens in these communities, Vikram, dispute resolution, it begins at the family level. So for example, in the marital cases and family disputes, there is especially the elderly women and the men, come and mediate between, let's say, the spouses who are warring. And it is expected that then they will be able to speak and they will be able to air their grievances at the family level. So at that point, mediation happens because both parties are present, they are being listened to, and they are encouraged to reach a solution among themselves. If that dispute is not resolved at the family level and it moves to the extended level, at the extended family level, which is the next level of conflict resolution, there is still mediation because the couple come and they sit with the family and the family listens. They're basically like facilitators of the process. Whether it's one person or it's two or it's a group of people, the spouses are the disputants. So they are talking to each other and they're being encouraged to reach a solution. But in these indigenous communities, past that extended family level, then mediation almost ceases. And the next level is now the Council of Elders. And a lot of times at this level, then people are being read to the community rules, the community regulations, the community penalties. Sometimes they will be asked to pick what their penalties would be. What do you think we should do to you? But if they are not able to agree, then the next level, Council of Elders, is almost a court kind of thing. So there is a graduation from mediation, which is at the family level. And as disputes are not resolved at that level, then they graduate and it ceases now being mediation. So it is a hybrid kind of thing these communities are having. And it's common, like in all the indigenous communities I have worked with. So there is the level of mediation, which is at the family level. Beyond there, it's kind of courtish. So there is a legal structure that now the person is told this is how our community exists. The beauty about a lot of these indigenous communities and a lot of African communities is that we believe in the Ubuntu value system, the good of all of us, as opposed to the legal system where one person takes it all or it's a win-lose kind of thing. In a lot of these indigenous communities is what is good for the society, as opposed to the individual rights don't supersede the community. So if a solution is best for a community and doesn't suit you very well, they will go with what is the community. But there is the role of these processes to try and maintain and rehabilitate and integrate even people who are deemed as criminals. So it's kind of, nowadays the communities have a hybrid kind of a system. It's unlikely that you will go into a community and find that it is purely mediation. So the mediation is strongest at the family level and at the extended family level. But beyond there, it picks another form.
But Faith, at the family level, I mean, if who actually does the mediation, who comes out as the mediator, they choose the person, or is it the elder in the family? How does that work? And every level, how does that really work?
Yeah, different communities identify different mediators. There are communities that will allow the disputants to pick a family member. In some communities, it's automatic, like the eldest people in that family become the mediator. In some cases, so it's either some communities will allow you to choose, some communities will pick for you. For some, it's automatic. You know, if you are in a family dispute, the grandmother or the oldest woman in that homestead then becomes the mediator.
So in that sense, as mediators, women are represented, but
At that level.
Yeah, and as the women in the dispute, definitely they are part of the process. It's not that they are not part of the process. So up till then, women are represented in every way.
Beyond the family level, they are not allowed to sit at the Council of Elders.
But at the extended family level,
Yeah.
they're also there. Women are involved in the whole process as mediators and as participants.
Yes.
Okay, so now basically when it comes to the Council of Elders, let's look at it like an arbitration rather than a mediation. So basically, they're going to decide, and you have to follow it. So that's what we're looking at as the Council of Elders. So you feel that at the Council of Elders stage also there could be a mediation option there.
Yes, yeah. I think um, it's the effect we have had on the indigenous groups that this Council of Elders have taken the form of courts, but traditionally, and it was also mediation. They would sit and listen to the disputants. Then hopefully the disputants are able to pick. They already know what penalties there are in the community. So you would pick, what do you think we should do to you, or what do you think you want to do to appease the people you have wronged. It was participatory, but now as time goes, then they have taken the role of courts, because even these indigenous people now realize, if I can't completely access justice at this level, I could sneak out of my community and get into the court. So it's all mixed up now.
Yeah. Because this is something that, even like I said, the last year's symposium I was talking about, that I think we need to sensitize the Council of Elders that if you want to stay relevant, you should actually start looking at it as a most inclusive process and a mediation process, rather than becoming a court, because otherwise then people will, maybe like you said, start going into courts, and then your relevance finishes as elders itself. I mean, to be able to be relevant, I think they have to also change, and that change has really happened. Now, when did again? I, of course, related to colonization. That did colonization start affecting even the Council of Elders? Were they before that, like you said, they were actually maybe looking at it differently? They were still listening to you and trying to find a solution which was acceptable to everyone, and then they moved into this whole adjudicatory all kind of a thing. So do you see any kind of history on that?
Yeah. It because traditionally that is not how they were structured. They would always have practices around these conflicts, and not necessarily meting out punishments. Even if it was a punishment, it was not meant to ostracize the person. It was almost the person was consenting to that kind of punishment, because they have been taken through the process of mediation and they feel they have wronged and they want to appease. So, but that now, like I said, in the interest of time, people want to speed up the processes, they want results, they want people to, the offended party, to feel like the Council of Elders really did something for them. So there's a lot of infiltration and borrowing from the external communities. But when I think about where we are at in Kenya right now, we have court annexed mediation, which has taken root in the last like 2 years. Initially, studies show that if you go to court in Kenya, a case is likely to take about 3 years before it's concluded and more. So what the courts have realized is that most of the cases in court do not belong to the court. So they're looking back and asking, so how was it done before? And they have set up a whole department of mediation. And there are cases that they're encouraging people to go into mediation. And the last study that was done shows that now cases that go to mediation take about 69 days on average, as opposed to the 3 years that they had to wait for. So people are now opting more for mediation of the small cases, or the cases that the court feels could be mediated. So Kenyans are beginning to read more and to understand more and to look back at the indigenous communities at how did they do it. So even the courts asking, how was it done? What are the skills? What are the practices? What cases were handled and how were they handled? So there's a lot more engagement with these indigenous communities, with the judiciary, and also with the Kenyan mediators. And so more people will start opting for mediation, and they're beginning to interrogate mediation. So I at a good place. Like I say, the more things change, the more they remain the same. We are going back, we are going back to where we came from, and
But
Kenyans are beginning to appreciate.
no, but I think, Faith, in that sense, you are better off, at least if the judiciary is looking at going back and seeing traditionally what was done. It's a very good sign, because most countries, that aspect has not been looked at. And because of the inefficiencies of the judicial system, like you said, 3 years in your case, in countries like India, it is average of 14 years. So for that reason, when it has gone for mediation, the settlement is happening because the time that will be taken in court, or the cost in courts, which is not,
Yeah.
should not be the factor for people sitting down and settling their issues. That is why the whole traditional thing of wanting to collaborate and being part of a community, looking at the community's interest, so those aspects are being lost in places. So I'm happy if you're saying that they're actually looking at what has happened, what was happening, and like you said, things don't, I mean, more they change, they don't change that, they remain the same. I think that part of it, if it's happening, I think that's a good sign, and other countries should look at that option of the disputes which go into courts going into mediation. And
Yeah.
then the skills that people in those communities, traditional skill communities, the skills that those people had as mediators, to recognize that, because that, but part of it is also getting lost, which is the idea behind this symposium also. Let's look
Mhm.
at that. That is a, what I keep saying, a purer form of mediation, which is mediation because you want to resolve it in a manner where the community's interests are also taken into account, rather than, like I said, in the court system, only you were actually putting a gun on someone's head and saying, okay, it'll take 3 years in this court, then there'll be an appeal, it might take that much time, so you're better
Yeah.
off settling. So that's the worst thing that has happened to mediation for me. That's really not mediation. So people will not go back with a good experience. They'll say, look, I had to do it because it was going to take so long in courts, but I did not have, I had wanted the court to decide for me. So that part of it has a big issue with most countries. But I think if you can start looking at it on a little differently, that you are, what you're saying, if that's happening, I'm very happy with that.
Yeah. About a year ago or so, the judiciary set up an accreditation committee. So they have a criteria. If you're a mediator and you want to be registered, then you go for an interview, you fill the forms. If you qualify, then you become a mediator, and you're placed in different parts of the country, and they will be placing files with you to mediate. So like you're saying, if we have more people with the mediation skills, what I called in that slide soft ways of doing hard things. Uh, we don't the issues are still, the conflict is still a conflict, but we don't have to handle it like in the hard legal way. A mediator should be able to like what Ken was saying, help people to go down to the deep sources of their conflict. Be in touch with your heart, be in touch with your soul, be in touch with your mind, be in touch with the whole of you, so that then if you are mediating a conflict, you know you're mediating it to the core and it will not recur. So if we get a lot more of these people into the legal system, and people um, look at cases that have been closed and they are win-win situations, because if there's anything that is annoying about the court system is that one person must win and another one must lose. And that also leads to a lot of fragmented litigation, because the winner will win and the loser will go to appeal. So the winners never get to enjoy the win, because you wait another 3 years for the appeal to go through. And when that person wins, another appeal. So they really, really never get to enjoy. But with mediation, where agreements are well thought out, then it's a win-win kind of situation, and we are able to save relationships. Because for me, I think the greatest win for mediation is being able to 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 insulate the whole process with humanity, being able to let people relate, being able to help people save the relationships going forward. If you're business partners, you should be able to do business after conflict. If you're family members, you should be able to sit together and share a meal after conflict. If it's a community against another community, we should be able to save that neighborliness. And I think that is what mediation at the Indigenous level, and even now in the modern spaces, should be able to go back to. When I look at the accreditation criteria for the court annexed mediation, they are very, very keen, especially on family matters and children matters, because they don't want people to mediate just because you're trained. They want to be sure that you have those extra skills, you have the soft skills, you are able to do this softly, even if it's a hard conflict, then people are able to come out as winners. And one of the things I found very wise about women in the Indigenous communities, in as much as they were excluded from the formal roles, they're able to somehow find their way into the conflict resolution in very soft ways. You find a woman's wanting to serve the committee or even the council of elders as to just serve them tea, to arrange their chairs, to just do what is known to be a woman's role, to be able to snake her way. And she earns trust. And they will consult her on one or two things. She may not sit at the table, but as she serves tea, they will ask her a question. What do you think about ABCD? So she's able then to bring out the gender aspect into that mediation. And for me, I think women have a bright way of doing hard things in a very soft way. And for me, that is a plus for mediation.
Yeah. But only thing now, Faith, you have opened up something which I will definitely have to talk about, because the courts and that part of it, the way, my view, because obviously, and I've this rant of mine has happened a lot of times and on a lot of my various events, that even the last symposium, almost all sessions, my concept is that, like I said, if you are in the court and you are going to, you're saying that that we call it win-win, it is not a win-win for them. The fact of the time and the cost being an element in that settlement is not a win-win for someone, because
Uh-huh.
if this was your right. Now how it plays out in some countries, what are they saying? That if you are not going for mediation, we will put costs on you. The court starts saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Now
The
in
threats.
yeah, so then
It,
now the point is, this is now for say a small businessman and a big corporation. Now a big corporation can gamble more than what a small person can gamble. In court, now if you are going and you lose that matter and costs are
mm-hmm.
put on the loser, this person is, for the small guy, he says, can I really take the risk? So when I sit for settlement with the big corporation, this factor is on that person's mind, that, oh, if I go to court and I lose and I have to pay these costs, it'll be huge. So that settlement is not a matter which I feel is something which mediation, it's really not mediation. For me, it's not really mediation if you put a gun on someone's head. We keep
Yeah.
saying it is party self-determination. What is a party self-determination? That party had a gun on their head of the costs and the time. So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that, look, this court thing is really not at all an option. Courts become efficient, you finish matters in 1 month, you become that efficient, and let mediation not happen. I'm happier that mediation doesn't happen. A person who's come and wants that, because they want to come to the court, they should come to the court and they should get their justice, because today justice delayed is justice denied, and courts are denying justice. So look,
Mm-hmm.
you'll hear this happening. I mean, I've told you this happened. I have spoken so much about it, but I have to pick this up with you, because I see the other side that you're picking up, that they are looking, if they're looking at the traditional systems and looking at bringing out that part, then even this whole accreditation or certification and whatever the process is, even there they should look at those people who have the skill and bring them forward, rather than put this box of mediation in someone's head, that if you fit into this, so you are a mediator, you will make you a mediator, you'll become a mediator. All those things have to go away. People have the skill in communities, like you said about women, and maybe there's a certain natural thing that women bring in. So let them come up, let them be mediator. What is, and first of all, it's a process where parties are there, they can walk out any moment they want. They, some major thing is put on this whole qualification for mediators. I mean, come of it, this person is, if suppose some parties trust someone, that person should be their mediator. There
Mm-hmm.
cannot be any qualification which can come in between them. That is their dispute. That is what I'm saying. This is again that whole colonization aspect. We will decide who will be your mediator also. Just stay
Mm-hmm.
away. You have created these courts. First dismantle courts and find a way to become efficient. That's that whole colonizers world. Look at that. Here on this side, let people take this process up because they want to collaborate with each other. They want to maintain their relationship. They understand that traditionally, yes, they are connected to this process in some way. Let them get that feeling. Don't take away that feeling from them and connect it to the courts, because then you are pushing a process down their throats and pushing a settlement down their throats only because of the inefficiencies of the court system. So I'm just thinking that if of course, yeah, I mean, courts realize this and they move towards, look, traditionally this has happened, and and my that symposium I said, mm, but I think Faith is gone. She's coming. She'll come back. Up till then, I was looking at the World Mediation Circle. Let me put that up again. So that was about the World Mediation Circle. So you want to be a part of it, please get in touch and let's look at dispute resolution in a different way. This is what the schedule of the symposium looks like right now. Link is on the website. So this is the speaker number 6 is where we are. So 8 o'clock we have Alicia. So if you want to participate, please get in touch. There are slots available. So let's have a look at the World Mediators Conference schedule, this was held in May and June. So there were about 90 sessions in that. Again, the link is on the website. So this is the YouTube link. You can click here and watch the sessions. So interesting topics. I mean, people gave their topics and we had that discussion. So lots of interesting topics. So please have a look. And I think Faith has an issue, so she might not come back. So thank you very much for watching. And I've definitely can't thank Faith right now. So whenever she watches it, thank you, Faith. And we'll have the next session